Hey guys, welcome back to Ranger Survival and Fieldcraft. I'm Andrew. Now, what I have for you today is a video by popular request, but a prequel to a video I made about 6 months ago on advanced bushcraft survival skills. This video is going to be basic or beginner bushcraft survival skills, but you're not going to get off that easy today because we're going to make these skills just a little bit more difficult and demonstrate some improvisation with our bushcraft and survival skills. So, let's go. Now we're going to start off as basic as it gets with bushcraft survival skills. We're out here in the field and we're going to harvest material. There's a lot of material around the area we can use, hardwood and softwoods, but all we need to get started is that Swiss Army knife out of our pack and the saw that's in that Swiss Army knife. We have the ability to do a lot of bushcraft skills with just some basic tools. We don't need a large axe or a felling saw or large bush knives or machetes on our hip to do a lot of skills. Really, a small Swiss Army knife or multi-tool that has a saw, a blade, and a reamer or awl are just enough to actually harvest material off the landscape, process that material down into the tools that we need.
Something small like that.
This skill we're going to do is as basic and beginner level as it gets, but it crosses over from bushcraft into survival, and we can use it when we're out in the field, especially if we're in wet conditions. It has been raining the last few days in this area. It's still very muddy and soft on the forest floor. While we can't be worried really about moisture getting into our pack with a nice backpack like the one we have, we can still get our gear up off the ground with a very simple method. We take out some cordage from our kit, and then that material we harvested with our Swiss Army knife and that saw blade, we can...
Man, I just want to say I praise the Most High, but man, I don't go to wood, but for me, watch him go to wood, do this thing, that's amazing, man. I greatly respect that, because now I'm learning all this tip I can use if anything can happen. You never know.
create a simple toggle, or in this case a bag hanger from a tree, to actually get our gear up off the ground. We hang it at about shoulder to chest height so we can still get in that bag. But this is a great method and a very basic or beginner skill that everyone should know. And if we practice this enough, we'll look pretty professional in the field, having a lot of dry equipment while everybody else's equipment is sitting on the wet forest floor. In the forest, it's best practice to use old material, things that are still viable from an old campsite or things we come across, instead of cutting down good material. That way we take care of the environment and the forest. The piece of material that we found is an old stick from a previous shelter out here. It was a hardwood, but it has survived the winter, albeit a little bit damp on the exterior, but it is still a hardwood, still a viable piece of material to use as a baton, or in this case a multi-purpose tool, dig stick. We're going to get our axe out and move to a stump or a down tree so we can use that as a makeshift anvil to actually begin carving our baton or our dig stick. This dig stick is going to have a pointed end with a spade cut. We use our axe for that. And then at the top end, it's going to have a trimmed end. That trimmed end, we just take our knife and our hatchet and trim around the ends to make it round as possible for a nice handhold. This dig stick is going to be a multi-purpose tool because we can use it for so many things. Simple sticks like this are a basic survival and bushcraft skill everybody should know. Our dig stick has 5 main purposes. That first one being just a simple baton to split material with our knife. It also acts as a toggle if we want to do some pull-ups from a tree out in the field. We can also use that baton or dig stick as a club to smash things. And then we can use that baton or that dig stick as well as a throwing stick to go after game on the ground. And then we can also use it as a digging stick with that spade end to dig up wild edibles, in this case wild onions, out of the field. Another tool that we can bring with us without all the accoutrements that are attached to it is just a simple saw blade. In this case, a 21-inch saw blade that's stowed safely inside our bush pot. We can just pull that out, and as we notice, we have key rings, or in this case, grenade pin rings, already attached to the ends through the eyes of that saw blade so that we can use it and have it ready for the field. Now what we're going to make is a simple bow saw. This is perfect for beginners and
I wonder if he
novice
really deep down
bushcrafters as
into
well as
it, he
survival
just
because we can
reviling
harvest simple
everywhere.
material, construct a saw blade very quickly, and then take down larger material if we need to. What we want to look for is sapling that will have some flexibility. We bend that over to make sure that it's got the flexibility that we need. And then we can take our saw blade, pull out our bandana, wrap the bandana around the saw blade and over the teeth, and use that as a simple hand saw if we didn't have any other cutting tools with us. Just a simple technique. But once we harvest that sapling, we take it back to camp, and then we take out our knife, and we want to baton the ends of our sapling so that they marry up as we attach the blade to the sapling to make our bow saw. We have the rings in place already, acting as pegs to stop that bow from coming undone around our saw blade, but we fix the blade in place, applying a little bit of tension and pressure. That sapling will naturally want to bend back to straight, keeping the saw in place with friction. And now we have our bow saw done and ready to go.
Wow.
If we're feeling a little bit froggy, we can also take 550 cord or any cordage and whip the ends of our bow saw just to make it a little bit stronger. But we can use this saw to harvest large material. Sawing through that material, we can angle the front of the saw down to take advantage of the kerf, pushing all of the debris out, and then finally harvest the material. But we can take large logs, just like this one, very easily. For our next skill, we're going to make a simple bush chair, but we're going to make a bipod bush chair that we're going to lean against a tree. I found some old material that we've used in a previous video to set up different shelters. Perfect length, already ready to go for us, that we're going to use for this skill. We're going to use a timber hitch for our beginning knot. A timber hitch, go along with our bipod legs here, is simply just creating a bite in the end of our cordage or the running end, and then we can put our finger through that bite and just rotate it until we get 5 or 6 wraps around our running and standing end, creating that candy cane or that twist effect. And that is a timber hitch, and then all we have to do after that is just take the timber hitch, put it around one of the poles at the top end, feed the standing end through, tighten it down, and we're good to go. From there, all we have to do is wrap around both bipod legs 5 to 6 times, and then we go in between the legs creating fraps. We create fraps by wrapping around the cordage that we've already made our wraps with between the bipod legs, and then tightening that down with our toggle. We can use our baton or our dig stick to use as a toggle to tighten the cordage down. We go and create those fraps in between.
It's amazing when you tie something. It looks so simple. It's not too much work. But if you're not paying attention, you make it so much work. But really, I haven't done this, but because he haven't do no any type of little tightening, all he do just swipe, roll. That's amazing.
Between the legs 3 or 4 times, and then we finish with a clove hitch right on top of our knot on one of the legs. It doesn't really matter, but the clove hitch is a good knot because it's a self-tightening knot. We simply wrap around the legs twice, creating an X as we overlap, feed the excess through the X, tighten it down until the clove hitch is cinched, create an overhand knot, and then cut off the excess, and we have our wraps and fraps done for our bipod. Good to go. To create the seat for our bush chair, we're just going to use our tarp and some cordage we made from our advanced skills video about 6 months ago. Cordage is still strong, still good to go. So we're going to take our tarp, lay it out. We want to fold it over on itself lengthwise, and then fold it in half, mirroring the meshed ends or the hemmed ends up, creating a loop at the bottom of our tarp, and that's going to be our seat. We want to have enough room to play with and make a strong enough seat that's not...
I had to text something.
going to give out on us. Once we're satisfied with that fold, we find the hemmed ends and we S-fold them together like a good paratrooper, and then take our cordage and we're going to tie a knot around the hemmed ends. That's going to be our seat. We want to have enough room to play with and make a strong enough seat that's not going to give out on us. Once we're satisfied with that fold, we find the hem dems and we S-fold them together like a good paratrooper, and then take our cordage and we're going to tie a knot around the hem dems, take the excess, flip it over top of itself, and then simply tie a secure knot as best as possible with the cordage we have. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to be secure. Once we're done with that, we simply create an
Pour me a little something real quick. Yeah, let's play that while I'm doing this.
overhand knot with the excess ends together, giving us that double overhand, and our seat is ready to go. Now that our bipod legs and our seat are complete, all we have to do is set it up. Grab our bipod legs and spread them out, set them against a tree or lean them against a tree until they're secure. We're satisfied. We take our seat and that double overhand knot and the excess material of our cordage, we simply put over top of one of the legs of our bipod, put a cross section in between the tarp at that loop we created with the fold, and then we simply sit down and enjoy the chair.
It's amazing. My man, yes sir. What?
For our next task, we're going to use our bow saw and harvest about 4 8 to 9 inch sections of material from this dead dry hardwood that was just near camp. And what we're going to make are some tent stakes. Now, tent stakes are easy and cheap to make, and we can make them from all the material around us. So if we happen to lose one, drop it, or throw it in the fire, we can simply recreate it. And of course, if we're not carrying tent stakes to begin with, it means that much more time on the front end for our shelter. But there is a right way and a lot of wrong ways to make tent stakes. I know you're shocked. The right way is to go back to that anvil with our hatchet, our material, and our knife that we had earlier. And we're going to carve a trimmed end at the top of our tent stakes and a spade end at the bottom, just like our dig stick. That rounded end at the top is so that as we bash it with a hammer, it won't split out on us. And then that spade end is to actually dig in the earth and help tighten our shelter. We're going to face the actual cut away from our attachment point, and as we hammer in the earth, it will actually pull or tighten our material as it eats in the earth because it's going to go at an angle toward our original anchor point, thus tightening our shelter. Tent stakes, they're good to know.
For nature,
Now that we have our
nature is the real thing. And if you gotta go camping, the best stuff to use is what nature had given you to use. Cause nature is not gonna fail you, only if you know what you're doing. As I'm not fully just going camping and know what I'm doing, but to visualize, to see things, watch things, it showed me nature is really top in line with anything, whatever man made. I'm not saying man made something wrong with them, but if you really want to go in the hood, I mean, if you really want to go in the wood, forgive me, without anything what man made, you want to feel that fully nature's about, is forget about what they made. Might be wrong, but correct me if I'm wrong. But you got the wood, you got the stick, some regular tandy can with some fans and stuff, some little thing, metal thing. You gotta. But he showed me like, hey, you could use a wiggler stick. But let's see what he got going on.
tent stakes done. We already have cordage, a toggle, we have our tarp, and we have our bipod legs. We're going to set up a modification to a simple shelter of the plow shear. Typically a plow shear.
But he using the sheet, but I'm saying like if you really want to feel like you want to be in the hood, you want to be in the wood, not like being CD, whatever it is. Yeah, you can use just some type of stake leaf to make yourself a little shelter, a little camp tent to lay down. But just to get a whole natural ranger. But my man right there, showing all due respect. I appreciate the video.
Is attached to a tree or a single point of attachment, and then we stake out the 3 other corners with one corner lifted at the point of attachment with that tree to give us the plowshare shape. But in this case, we can use our bipod legs from our bush chair to act as our point of attachment to create a plowshare away from a main anchor point. The beauty of this is that those bipod legs can be adjusted to actually move the tarp up and down. And it's very simple and easy to put up. Why not use all the materials we have available? So what we do is just lay out our tarp in a diamond shape, put one stake in the bottom corner, and then put our toggle through the eyelet of the top corner of our tarp, hang it over our bipod legs, secure it with cordage, and then take that cord down, tie a knot, secure it in front of our shelter with another stake, and then all we have to do is simply stake out the other two corners, and we have our plowshare set up and complete. If we want a little warmth in our shelter, the short side of our tarp should be facing the sun. If we want to get a little bit more shade and have some cool air underneath our tarp, we point that long portion of our tarp toward the sun, limiting the sun getting in our shelter. And this is a very easy shelter to set up, and we can have a fire out front if we need to. Bushcraft. Too easy.
I probably lay on top of the tree like this. That's the around. Definitely got no idea. But man, respect, man. Everybody's different. Well, I'm learning. This for the shade. This stick has a triangle.
What do we do if we don't have a backpack to begin with, or we come across materials or lose our backpack and we have to carry things over distance and terrain to get to our next campsite or self-rescue out of a survival situation, or just for bushcraft? Too easy. We create a pack frame for it. And one of the simplest ways to do that is called a Roycroft pack frame. And this is going to be in the style of a triangle. This triangle at the top, the portion behind our head, we're going to tie just like we did.
All respect. This is for fair use, for educational purposely only. Ranger, survival, and field craft. Most respect. First time watching it, first time reaction to this channel. Truly appreciate it, and who knows? There's some more channels I haven't watched it yet, and I'm looking forward to learn from. Oh no, disconnect me.